Hello and welcome back to the MHR podcast. I'm Alice.
And I'm Andy.
Andy, how would you feel if I said let's talk about the end of the year?
You know what? I feel like this year's flown by, actually. Like, we're about to enter quarter 4, right?
Yep.
That's
Literally
mad,
a few
isn't
weeks
it?
away, aren't we? Yeah.
That's absolutely mad. Like, a lot of businesses are now booking, like, their Christmas due.
You did mention the C word there.
I'm not sorry. I do apologise. We're not talking about it today. But, like, people are wrapping up, I suppose.
They are, yeah, it's literally on the horizon.
So I suppose we should talk about, ever being the proactive team that we try to be, like you said. We should be leading the debate. What should businesses be thinking about as we want to be proactive for next year? What should we be doing with the remainder of our business year to make sure that things are ship-shape and ready?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the time when we speak about the end of the year, it's because people are still trying to probably hit targets, aren't they? They know it's the final push, it's quarter 4. But there's another side to business, which is it's actually now in September, it's probably the best point to be proactive and think, okay, we are in the ending of the year. What is it that we need to be doing now?
Yeah.
Kind of at this point, rather than rushing it in December.
We can't do it all in December and January, can we? We need to be like moving, working. We need to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of businesses will look at budgets this time of year, right?
Yeah,
Plans
well, we've got
for
the
next
budget
year.
coming up anyway, haven't we, in October?
We've got a government budget, so
Yeah.
businesses are also going to be going, well, how are we going to spend ours?
Yeah, exactly.
What are our plans for next year? What does next year look like? What are our next year targets?
Yeah.
What do we want to be achieving? What's our revenue thing? What are our sales targets? What's marketing going to look like to support the sales targets? How many things are we going to do internally? What are we going to do with our customers? What are our plans next year? Are we going to buy that other building? Are we going to take on more staff? Are we not taking on enough staff? Are we going to have to lose staff? Is next year looking rosy? Is it looking scary? I don't know. What are we going to do? Do we need to book Christmas party? But first we need to sort this out.
We do.
That's where I think businesses are at the moment. That's my small monologue about where businesses are going and feeling.
So plenty of questions.
And can we answer them all,
Can
Alice?
we answer? It's the what's, the ifs and the buts. But saying that, it is, I think, kind of fallen within the HR remit that maybe they should be the ones that kind of trigger these conversations.
Okay.
Because ultimately, they make the business compliant. They kind of have the responsibility of keeping the business compliant, but also, creating that culture. So when we talk about kind of within these podcasts, we always kind of reflect on the responsibility of HR. And when we think about the end of the year, like you say, like you rattled off, managers, directors, team leads, colleagues, we all have many, many thoughts going on.
Yeah.
And we all kind of think, well, we've got the rest of the year, but I think it's HR to say, actually, we're already talking about the strategy for next year. We're already thinking about what the budget is, how we want to retain more staff, what sort of new talent we want to attract. So, like I say, I think this conversation is all about how can, as a business and the HR department, be proactive when we think about end of year.
Okay.
So it is that perfect opportunity, and in some ways it's to kind of run like an in-depth compliance assessment, but also I think run through the kind of reports that you need to be running as well at the end of the year, looking at those stats, looking at what data you've collected over the year, what you can learn from it, what you want to take forward.
Well, we talk about it all year, don't we? We've been talking about make sure you've got HR software or payroll software that's getting better, good employee data. Make sure you're making good business decisions. When are you actually going to do that?
Yeah.
This is, if you're thinking about next year, you shouldn't be making any plans about reviewing what data you've got, right? What are your insights telling you about what you can do to make really informed business decisions?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going, yeah, we're going to do next year, but 10%. And it's okay, but it's not grounded on anything. We don't know about how have our employees behaved all year.
Exactly.
What's our retention rate? What's our attrition rate? What are we doing in terms of managing leave? What are we doing in terms of training? Have people taken up all the things? Where are we wasting money? Where are we not spending enough money? That kind of stuff we need data on in order to make sure we're going, okay, we can utilise this for next year.
Exactly, yeah, definitely. So some of the key data that they say actually can impact the HR department quite a lot, but also the business. And it kind of comes under payroll, but it's things like overtime stats. So an example this article has given me is often overtime can be kind of slipped through, if it's not quite captured within a system that helps kind of create quite a standard process for overtime. If you're relying on spreadsheets, it can slip through a lot of the time. It could be late submissions. Obviously, that impacts personally on your employees, but it impacts the stats for your data for the company. Also, there's legal limits, and there can be different special kind of pay rates. So, kind of a top tip is they say that if you've got overtime within your business, is to be checking those hours and payments now, so that you have that period of time of 3 to 4 months right now to go and correct it. So by the end of the year, you know that you're not only kind of compliant, but that you know on a baseline that your payroll's been right for the whole year.
Okay.
So another one you can have a look at is when you're looking at kind of your employees on the basis is, you know, how many active employees do you have? So there's joiners, the leavers. Look at the reasons why. You know, take a learning from the past year, and you know, maybe you need to incorporate into a strategy going forwards. Have a bit of a change up. I think that can be something that gives you quite a bit of information about what your company culture is. It has been for the past year. And like you say, maybe where there might be areas that need more investment for training, or, you know, for kind of specific people that might want to be brought in at a higher level to kind of jig the team up a bit. But I think that's quite a good one as well, isn't it? To say that it's not just kind of looking at the stats of who's come and gone, but the reasons behind it. And why people might have stayed, you know, where they might have left and actually they've ended up staying. What was it that captured them?
I can see why that kind of then, like you say, falls into the argument of why this could be a HR-led incentive or message, because it's about connecting the dots between all the people in the organisation. Because the biggest thing I think a lot of businesses struggle with is planning for next year or future planning is they work in silos, right? Every department has their own big master plan. But actually, if those plans aren't talking to each other, you're not seeing the kind of broader commercial objective for the organisation, and that's got to be driven by people. So we need to understand how people can fuel that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think another one as well is we talk about kind of like the 3 Ps in business. So we obviously mentioned their people, and there's profit that comes into the equation as well. And it's kind of, I think, what's it called, like the chicken and egg, kind of, you know, what actually tips a business into success. But I think, you know, as a HR payroll company, we'd fall on people. We would say actually it is the people that drive it and how they work and how efficient they work is ultimately what impacts the amount of profit that can come out of the business. But obviously when we speak about people, another thing that should be part of that HR checklist at the end of the year is probably your employee benefits.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we discussed that in a previous podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of it, like how useful are benefits, what do they really mean, what you should be considering, how they can support company culture, what a benefit really is. What should we be doing to review them now then? Why is it so important at this time of year?
So this one kind of leans towards, you know, the obvious question of, are your employees taking them up? Is there maybe a company saving? If something's not been adopted at all, is it actually that kind of popular with your staff?
Okay.
But it also relates to your payroll. So are your employees, do they understand the policies behind these benefits? And also it can relate to payroll processes. So just make sure that people are aware. So things like, I'm sure pension, that sort of thing, that it's all kind of, it's been correct the whole year, that they're on the weighting that they want to be on. You know, there might be a change of circumstance next year for a few employees. So are you starting conversations about retirement? You know, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of that falls into employee benefits, I think, question-wise. But again, I think that's more of a to-do rather than like a strategy-based checklist item.
Okay.
So another interesting one, which this article went towards, and I've already thought about it, but it says worker classification.
Right.
And this describes it as, so at the end of the year, to review the classification of workers, so to mitigate disguised employment risks or prevent employee misclassification. And I think this is what it leans towards, is actual completing the reviews of your employees. So are they speaking with their managers? Have they had their end of year review? Have they had a pay review? Is there maybe a description of their job correct with the job that they're doing? I think that can keep employees engaged with the company.
I see. So actually going, you know, we may have set off at the start of the year to go in this direction. Your role may have changed, your responsibilities might have morphed into something that maybe doesn't seem as tangible now. How do we review that in terms of what we set out to do, but also how do we kind of review where you are and what that really means and what value that's adding to the organisation and why we should be working on that? Because it might be a different picture to what we set out in January.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that happens a lot with people's roles. I feel like we all start the year with, okay, this is what we want to achieve. And then you get you to your day job, don't you? And then suddenly that project's morphed into something else.
But that's the benefit, isn't it, of kind of growing in an organisation. Like a good I can't use my words. A good organisation will actually start to unlock the areas that you can add additional value. And then your role should work around that because you're adding that into the organisation. And it might be going, okay, that's different to what we set out to do. But if your skills are in there and that's adding value, we should just do more of that. Let's tap into that.
Yeah.
Like it's unlocking a skill set. It's unlocking some capabilities in your workforce.
Yeah,
it's a reason to
absolutely.
stay as well, because people carve their own paths in an organisation.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a point there, which is nice, is that there needs to be more recognition at this end of year. What
Yeah.
are people's successes? What has been achieved this year? What is something that might have felt like it was a million miles away, but actually, everyone worked together and they pulled off that project, or they got them that target that you never thought was possible.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah,
ever-
I think it's important because what we don't want though is you don't want a scenario where you're going, okay, we've gone through the grind, it's really tough. It felt like such a drag, and no one actually acknowledged it. So why am I going to put any energy into next year? Like, if you're not going to acknowledge the work that we've done and the value that it's had, why should we be bothered? Why should we be excited? Why should we listen? Why should I be not dreading another year after do the same again and you just not appreciate it? I think recognition is huge, and we talk about that a lot anyway with People First, right? Because it's a social platform driven to recognise its staff and create those opportunities. But I do think, maybe you're right then, if this is a HR-led conversation that they should be bringing into the organisation, mate, what can HR managers do to go to the rest of the company and departments and go, right, how are your check-ins going? Where are you with your people?
Yeah.
Have you acknowledged what they've achieved to date? Are we celebrating it?
Yeah.
Where are they with their time? Are there a load of people who have taken way too much sick leave? Or do we need to look at that? Are there a load of people that haven't taken half enough holiday yet? What are you going to do for them? Because, by the way, if they all start booking it in now for November at the same time, you're in trouble, because this happens now, right?
It does, especially in December.
Yeah.
Everyone does all save it up. But like you say, it's almost that time of year now that you can actually plan ahead. Like you're saying, if people are going to take a massive amount of leave in December or beginning of November, what impact's that going to have? Or if you've had someone that's just started to kind of outshine in your team, have you recognised them? Because it does kind of play back in.
Are you planning what that route for them looks like next year?
Yeah. Are they aware of it?
Yeah, exactly. Or, are we considering it? Because if you're great, I can feel like you're doing really well, but you're underwhelmed and you're stressed, but you want to go that way. We're going to do the same thing next year. They're going to go, and I won't be here because I feel like I'm outgrowing it. So what are you doing to factor in their journey and part of the plans for next year? That's all part of the people problem.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good people problem if you've got overperforming staff.
Yeah, I'll say so, to be fair. But then on the kind of additional side to that is, are you're kind of across the whole business, are they aware of where we're heading for next year?
Yeah.
On a business level,
How do you communicate direction? Because
Yeah.
that's huge, isn't it? Apart from having like a very, very expensive giant company-wide meeting, what are you doing to go, are we on the same page for next year? Is everyone aware of all our achievements? Is everyone aware of what we're doing next year? That's tough.
Definitely. But at this kind of 2024, 2025, there are a massive amount of platforms that can help you drive that message, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like I say, a great way is to get everyone in one room and have a big celebration. But it's not just about that one day.
Yeah.
It's that lead up, it's that pre-launch of
But it's the
the next
constant
year.
as well, right?
Yeah,
We
definitely.
don't just talk at the start of the year what we're going to do and at the end of the year what we've done.
Yeah.
We need to talk about it throughout and then actually review if that's setting off different paths and routes and opportunities.
Yeah.
Are you keeping agile? Are we
Definitely.
celebrating the wins as we get them?
Yeah. I think the most successful businesses are the ones that are adaptable, they're flexible to change, because that's the one consistent, isn't it?
And
that
harnessing
changes.
opportunities as well, right?
Yeah.
Opportunities
Oh,
will
for
come along that
sure.
we don't expect. So we need to make sure that we're logging that throughout. So, we don't get to December and be like, oh, look, we stayed on path. Yeah, but we missed all the things we could have done. Yeah, no, but we stayed on path.
Yeah.
No, a business needs to go, we've got this data telling us this now live, and this is happening in the market. We can flex, we can move around that. We can create a new revenue stream. We can create a new opportunity. We can create a new product. We can create a new team. We're going to react to that because we've got the data and insight to support that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this comes down to, right? Whatever you do for next year, whatever you're doing to wrap up this year, you need to do it based on data that supports how your business has performed, and you need to have the ability to communicate really clearly across the business that data, those wins, and what you're planning to do next forward. So it's about a connected culture, and it's about a culture led by data and insight that supports everyone else.
Absolutely. So I guess the kind of the final question to land on, and this is kind of throwing a question out to whoever's listening to the podcast, is what are your next steps? What are you going to take and plan out in the next week so that you know that the rest of your year is going to be a proactive approach and that you're already planning ahead for 2025?
And then how are you going to make sure your staff are aware of that so they can make your goals theirs?
Absolutely.
Because then you're on the same path. You're going to
Yeah.
be on a road to success, right?
As a team.
Cool.
Definitely. Well,
I expect your answers for the next week, Alice. Thank you. That'd be great.
of course.
And then I'll do my objectives around what you want me to achieve. I don't mind.
Okay.
Cool.
Brilliant. We're
Yeah.
on the same page then.
Good, lovely.
Great.
It works.
Communicated, sorted, aware, on it.
Well, in that case, then we'll join you next week. Have your answers ready, and we'll have a look at them.
Brilliant. For now, I've been Alice.
Cheers. I've been Andy.
Bye.